Just doing a quick mic check. One moment, guys, just getting everyone up. Hey guys, starting in just a moment. We are just getting our speaker in. Just a short delay. Apologies. Just 1 sec, guys. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Not a problem. Our guest is actually going to be speaking from the Caldera official account today. So awesome. Glad to have some of you guys back from around an hour ago. We are having a very epically busy, exciting, fun summer. Honestly, it's been really amazing. We have Caldera here with us today. We have Matt from Caldera, one of the co-founders. Very exciting to get a chance to chat with him, talk about everything going on with Caldera, some updates, a little bit about the amazing campaign that they ran on Galxe as of late, as many of you guys probably know. And so obviously, without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive right into it. Matt, feel free to say hello, give a quick intro to yourself and a little bit of your background as well.
Yeah, for sure. And just want to say super, super great to meet you and great to be on the space.
Thank you.
We've really enjoyed collaborating with Galxe for our latest campaign, and it's been going really well. So so happy to speak here and great to be here. For myself, quick intro on me. I'm Matt. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Caldera, but I also have an engineering background. So previously studied computer science at Stanford. I'm actually on campus right now for the Stanford Blockchain Conference. So if anyone here is around, feel free to ping me and say hi. We can meet up IRL. I worked all over the place in both Web 2 and Web 3, mostly doing infrastructure and product engineering. Spent some time at Apple, where I worked on performance on iOS Mail, worked in the game industry, worked for some early stage startups building products, and was kind of in and out of crypto since 2012, 2013, and really came back during the last bull run when we realized that blockchain as like a computational platform was really hitting its stride. And so that's what led us into founding Caldera.
Amazing. Yeah, you have a very colored past with so many different aspects. Could I ask how it was working at Apple? I'm just very curious. I've never met anyone that's had the opportunity to work at such a, I guess, large corporation like that. Was it a nice experience?
So I think it depends on who you are. I wasn't like it wasn't a terrible experience by far. I had a really good time there.
Yeah.
That being said, Apple has a lot of the issues as an employee, like that a lot of big tech companies do, where it's just really, really hard to make a big impact. And so I had a good time there, but definitely kind of realized it wasn't for me. Working on a very, very small piece of a very, very large product was not the the way I wanted to spend my life, but it wasn't a bad experience at all.
No, that's very cool. And I agree with the sentiment. It's when you're doing work where you feel like you are making a splash or making an impact, like it really does brighten up a lot of the different aspects of your life in general. And it's just that's been my experience since working in crypto as well. You really do get to see the impact and get that feedback that I imagine is probably pretty difficult when you're working in a specific area in like Apple or Google, for example. So I could definitely agree with you there. And with that, obviously, I'm glad you made that move because here we are today with Caldera. And thanks again for the nice words at the beginning. Very glad to have had the opportunity to work with you guys as well. I know you guys are doing some really cool stuff, and we're going to kind of go over this. If you don't mind giving me your best explanation covering Caldera for those who don't know, what you are or what you're doing. And as well as I just want to add in a little tidbit, I might ask you if there's any specific terms or phrases that may seem, very illicit or overcomplicated that users may not understand. I might ask for some just explanations on some phrases or terms. But yeah, just your best explanation of Caldera would be great.
Totally. And yeah, I'll try to avoid the jargon. It's really great,
No problem.
to do these things to not end up too much in a technical sort of quagmire. So what Caldera is we're one of the leading rollups as a service platforms. And so what that means is that we help projects build their own dedicated layer 2 blockchains for their applications. We work with teams all around the Web3 space. So a really, really great selection, some gaming projects, some projects building like DeFi exchanges, as well as some teams like Manta Network, who I think we featured last week in the Galxe campaign, who's more just like building a general chain for their ZK ecosystem. So we work with all sorts of different projects. And the core product is helping them launch their own dedicated blockchains for their applications that are L2s that ultimately settle to Ethereum.
Oh, sorry. I think I lost your mic on that last phrase there, if you don't mind saying one more time.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so we give these teams their own dedicated blockchains, but those blockchains are ultimately layer 2 blockchains. They're rollups, which means that they're connected to Ethereum. They settle on Ethereum. They inherit security from Ethereum, and they're able to interoperate with all of the assets that are natively on Ethereum.
Oh, very cool. So I love that, giving the opportunity to many. And now you mentioned, obviously, rollups, app rollups. Would you be able to give us just a more detailed understanding of what these are for people that might not get that?
Totally, totally. So probably the best way to explain it is we're taking the Rollup code bases, the same code bases that are used by projects like Optimism and Arbitrum, and we're making it easy for people to spin up their own instances of those blockchains. So if you are, let's say, a game and you want like 100 TPS of dedicated throughput, and you have certain modifications you want to make to a blockchain, and maybe you want to like use your own token as like the native chain for a blockchain, just for whatever reason you want a dedicated blockchain for your app, we help those teams do that in a no-code way without needing to worry about infrastructure or protocol development. And we help them spin up like their own version of Optimism or their own version of Arbitrum.
Very cool. So for those that are obviously getting their own chains, will they need like validators for that chain?
Yeah. So the really nice thing about like the layer 2, Rollup model is that you're ultimately able to inherit security from the base layer chain, the L1. And so the really great thing there is like, it's actually, one of the reasons why Rollups as a service have really proliferated over the past, year and a half or so is like this, the technology model allows like the business model to exist, where we can kind of run the sequencers ourselves as a company. We can run the block producers in the same way that Optimism and Off-Chain Labs with Arbitrum run their own block producers. We basically do the exact same thing for our customers. So we'll run the sequencers, we'll run a bunch of nodes as well as RPCs that their end users and their developers can use. And it means that like they don't need to, no one needs to put in the effort to like recruit a bunch of different companies to act as validators for every individual chain. So it's really, really easy to spin these chains up.
No, that would be such a obviously larger step, and being able to skip that probably just speeds things up very nicely. So, and yeah, that's great all around. And so obviously in this space, with many people probably working on these, different areas, et cetera, how do you feel that, Caldera as, yourself a unit are doing it differently? What gives Caldera the edge?
Yeah, another great question. So the most important thing for us is like we entered this space, this category before there even was a category. When we founded the company back in March of last year, nobody was really talking about Rollups as a service. Very few people were even talking about this whole notion of modular blockchains, right? It was like, the Celestia like forums and their Discord. Like there really wasn't a lot of consensus around Rollups and L2s as there is today. So we have like a massive head start when it comes to just product development. We're one of the first to market with this idea, and like that's been able to give us a lot of momentum in helping lock down new customers, lock down new users. And again, like working with those customers and users helps inform us of like the best ways for us to build our product. So there's a really nice like virtuous cycle there. Another thing I would say in terms of differentiation from some of the competition is that we are really, really focused on being an infrastructure provider rather than trying to like monopolize the entire Rollup stack. The advantage that gives us is like, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel with like, what's the best way to like build an underlying blockchain. We're using all of these like very well battle tested open source code bases, right? Things like the Optimism code base, the Arbitrum code base. And we're just focused like, singularly focused on making the best experience for people to like customize those code bases and deploy those code bases in a reliable way. And so some of our competitors have really tried to reinvent the wheel when it comes to like building, different types of like roll-up stacks, et cetera. Like that leads to like a big sunk cost and time, and it's meant that like they can't really focus on the core product experience as much as we can. So we've also found like that's generally like a pretty big differentiator.
No, I like that way of looking at it. I think that there's been too many times that in crypto where something has, I guess, stuck or been popular, or someone has sort of led the way in an area, and then a lot of people, instead of taking the good things and building upon them, will just try to reinvent the wheel. And I know everybody they want to be the one in those shoes that does it right. You're right though. It takes too much time at the end of the day. It really does. And then you lose the user experience, and it becomes a mess. And so I like that outlook that you guys have there in that sense. And now you also mentioned Arbitrum, obviously. One thing I wanted to ask today was sort of what led to your integration with Arbitrum Orbit, and what are some of the things you guys wanted to see long term with that?
Totally, totally. So like we originally, when we founded the company, we were only doing OP stack, so like optimism code base rollups.
Yeah.
That was primarily because of like the licensing around Arbitrum. So they used a business source license, which meant like
Interesting.
the Arbitrum, you could run an Arbitrum node, but you couldn't like launch your own version of Arbitrum, right? In the way that
Yeah.
we're doing this. And so one of the big kind of, it's not necessarily a technical innovation, although they've been putting a lot of technical work into making this, more feasible, but it's more of like a legal innovation where like with the launch of the Arbitrum DAO, they opened up the license for the Arbitrum code base. So now you can launch permissionlessly new chains as L3s on top of Arbitrum, and you can also go to the Arbitrum DAO to launch like your own Arbitrum-based L2. And so we're really excited about that. We're like the first team. Like immediately when we saw that announcement, we spent like a week putting together a proof of concept of like Arbitrum stack chains. And it's just because like ultimately at the end of the day, like we want to provide choice to our users. We think like some users will really want to work with the OP stack, the optimism stack. Some other users, especially if you're in the Arbitrum ecosystem or you're doing something, with like Arbitrum DeFi, you might want to launch an L3 on top of Arbitrum. Makes more sense for you to use the Arbitrum stack for that. We wanted to give those users that choice. And so we're really, really excited to integrate with Arbitrum Orbit. And the great thing is like now the folks who come to us and say they want to launch a chain, we're able to kind of direct them to the stack that makes the most sense based on their project needs.
No, yeah, that's amazing. Honestly, it really sounds like that process was made for you guys. That's perfect. And so obviously talking about partnerships, integrations, etc. As well, in the last month, you guys recently, I believe it was around the end of July, announced the work you guys are doing with Espresso SYS. Could you kind of give an explanation on that as well, just what that means for Caldera?
Yeah. So Espresso is working on a decentralized sequencing protocol. And so in a rollup, the kind of best way to think about like these rollups or their modular blockchains is like they're basically decoupling every single component of the blockchain stack into like its own kind of chain or its own network. And so one piece that happens on every single blockchain, but it's often like really tightly coupled with everything else, is like the ordering of transactions and like the inclusion or exclusion of transactions, right? So when you submit a transaction on Ethereum, you need for that transaction to be included within a block and for that block to be propagated throughout the rest of the network. And in Ethereum's case, that process is decentralized, just like everything else in Ethereum, where like your transaction will get like circulated to a bunch of different nodes, and the node that eventually ends up producing a block will choose whether or not to include or exclude that transaction. And like which node has the authority to construct a block is decentralized, and it changes in like a somewhat kind of random way. And from that way, you're able to get like censorship resistance and a lot of these like nice properties around decentralization. In the rollup case, you typically don't have that. So no rollup that's running in production right now has decentralized sequencing. So in order to get a transaction included on the rollup, you often need to, that process goes through like a single centralized server effectively, and that server can choose whether or not, both the ordering of transactions and also whether or not that transaction is, included in the chain or not. Oftentimes these rollups as well, they'll have some like backdoor using Ethereum L1 for you to force inclusion of a transaction, but that's oftentimes very expensive, and it's only basically like a last resort, right? So the chain can't fully stop you from posting transactions, but it can like really slow it down. And so like a certain amount of like not security risk, but there's a certain amount of censorship risk that rollup users today currently accept when they're using rollup. And so what Espresso is doing and other teams in this decentralized sequencing space, they're building networks just to handle that part of like deciding whether or not transactions are included or excluded. And so there's some really, really nice properties there where it's like us as a rollup company, we don't need to be the arbiter of what transactions get included and in what order, right? Which also means like us as a rollup company can theoretically right now be running like MEV bots or whatever on the mempool. Instead, we can like pass it off to this other network that's credibly decentralized, and that'll give users like a lot more confidence that their transactions are being ordered in like a credibly neutral way. And so I think there are some applications, especially in DeFi, where this is going to end up becoming very, very important. And so we're really excited to be one of the first teams that's working with Espresso to make that vision of decentralized sequencers a reality.
No, that's very exciting, and it's cool. It's always nice to be the first to get to kind of lead the way in that sense. And so when obviously it comes to this process with you guys working with Espresso, would you be able to kind of put into point form the benefits so that just so the users can understand in a more simple process?
Yeah. So the benefits are a lot of the reasons why people like blockchains in general. So you have censorship resistance, which means the Rollup cannot decide to basically prevent you from making transactions. And you also get more decentralized ordering, which means like MEV is still possible, but it'll happen on the other network. Right now, like Rollup protocols like us or like Arbitrum, Optimism, zkSync, whatever, have full authority to order transactions. And that means like we could theoretically be very, very extractive MEV wise. We're not, but we could. So being able to plug in a decentralized sequencer system can give users the confidence that we're not doing anything fishy.
No, I like that, and I think the trust you'll get there in that sense will be super important long term. Great, thank you. That's awesome. That's some really exciting stuff. And I appreciate you being able to take it to a point and simplify it as well. Myself also, I know it's for the users mainly, but myself also. My most, I'd say, tech experience in crypto has been doing a lot of these spaces, and I actually get to learn a lot as well. So thank you for the awesome explanations. I appreciate it. These have really turned me into a more technical person. So thank you for that. And now, so obviously, you guys have been working on some amazing stuff. We've covered a few different aspects of what you guys are doing, what you guys are building, some of the people that you guys have been partnering with, and how this will benefit you guys long term. And obviously, recently, we've been doing some things together, and I appreciate you guys doing that with us. You guys had an amazing campaign, the Caldera Bootcamp. It's been so cool to see. It's been like the most talked about campaign. It's been huge numbers. It's been insane. Would you be able to just give us a quick overview of this campaign and kind of what the goals there were with that? I think your mic is not working. Hello?
Hello? Okay. Am I back?
Yeah, I think I got you back. Were you able to hear me at all there?
For most of it, yes. Maybe you could repeat the last sentence or two.
Yeah, no worries. Sorry about that. Sometimes the connection in these spaces can be rough. Yeah, so I mentioned, we covered a great amount covering the details of what you guys have been up to, how it works, how some of these things are benefiting you guys long term. And obviously, I just wanted to mention as well, we had an amazing campaign with you guys, like I mentioned at the beginning, the Caldera Bootcamp. It's been an amazing success, and I just want to congratulate you guys on that, and thank you for working with us. And I wanted to see if you would cover kind of the bootcamp itself, an overview of the plans of it and what you guys wanted to achieve with it today on the call.
Yeah, for sure. And really appreciate the kind words. I have a lot of, similarly kind words for Galxe. It's been really great to work with you guys. So in terms of the campaign, I think like for us as more of like a business to business infrastructure, platform, we had like, I would say like a relatively unique approach to the Galxe campaign, where like we weren't as concerned about like engagement with like our posts and like with the broader like Web3 user community as much as probably a lot of your other partners. And that's and so like I think we can see that in kind of the results of the campaign, where like our KPI wasn't like Twitter followers on the main Caldera account. Really what we were focused on, as an infrastructure provider that's really focused on helping other projects that are building on top of us succeed, is we're trying to like funnel a lot of attention and usage into our end customers. Because, so we view this as definitely like a way to help our customers succeed and as sort of like a customer success project. And so what we've been doing, and another thing kind of like, as you mentioned as well, like with the space, also is like, we found like just talking about modular blockchains, it's often like a very, very difficult thing to parse. It's like this new blockchain architecture. Most people in the Web3 space aren't really familiar with like even like quote unquote Gen 1 blockchain architecture, right? Of course, everyone is more familiar with things at the application layer. And so we wanted to kind of design the campaign around like number one, just educating users and other developers about the possibilities of like building with your own rollups and building with modular blockchains, and also help show those users like the current applications that are building on modular blockchains. And so we designed it as I think we've called it like Caldera Academy. A lot of credit for this as well goes to James, who I think is in this call, and Alex, our head of BD and growth engineer respectively, for really like figuring out the shape of what this would be. But we wanted to use this as an opportunity to educate users and also to help direct them to the teams we're working with, like Volatilis, Manta Network, Loot Chain, et cetera. And I think we've been able to do that to pretty good effect.
No, yeah, I can definitely agree to good effect. Week one, 227,000 participants is a pretty wild number, especially in a bear market, right? So I just want to congratulate you guys on that. And I think that your goal is admirable in the education aspect. I had a call, we had a Twitter space earlier with MetaMask actually, where we chatted a bit about that. And, it's been stuck in my head now as well, in this sense of a lot of people just don't understand a lot of the, deeper things that they can get into and be involved in, and these more creative campaigns that are more like, I'd say, focused on education, for example, and customer success are what I love to see, just personally myself. And it really, I see it in our community. We get such a nice response, and it's very interesting to get that feedback. Even from you guys running the campaign, I see the feedback, right? Because they come to me with questions, et cetera. So yeah, I can confirm it's been a really nice process and thing that you guys have put out, and we've definitely seen the effect and spread it's had across our community as well. So very exciting stuff. And with that, we kind of covered a lot of different areas today. So for a user that's listening right now to this call that has gotten a intro to Caldera, we talked a bit about the campaign. They may go check that out. If they wanted to get involved beyond that, where would a user go, and where would you like to guide them, for example?
Yeah. So if that user is working on a project, startup, or a more established protocol that's like thinking through building their own dedicated rollup, we are very accessible. Go to caldera.xyz. There's a button there to book a call with our team. Really, I think one of the most rewarding things about like being in this line of work and being like developer infrastructure is we get to talk to like really, really interesting startups that are building amazing things at the application layer. And so if you're listening and you fit that description, like please book a call. I think a lot of people who we talk to are just surprised about the amount of things and the kind of level of customization and how powerful app rollups can be. And so oftentimes, like, I think a lot of companies that are building infrastructure, they need to tell their users no. Oftentimes, like, these calls are users asking, saying, oh, we don't know if we're able to do X or Y. And we say, yeah, you can, right? Like when you control your own chain, ultimately you can kind of do whatever you want. So if you're a builder, please talk to us. And if you're not, or you're more on the consumer end, I think the best place to start is the Caldera Bootcamp on Galxe. Truthfully, that'll be a really great opportunity for people to interact with the projects that are building their own dedicated chains with Caldera. So it'll be a bit of a glimpse into the future for a lot of users, just seeing what it's like, what it's going to be like when like every protocol has its own chain. So would highly recommend folks check out the Galxe campaign as well.
Of course. And yeah, guys, you can still go ahead and get involved right now. Make sure you head over to the Caldera space and get involved in the Caldera Bootcamp. Take some time, learn something new. And yeah, thank you for the kind of amazing walkthrough. A lot of the time, people will give a walkthrough of like where to get involved and kind of just think of the user. So I like that outlook you gave of the builders as well that might be listening. So as they can sometimes be forgotten in that process. And with that, we're 3/4 into the year now. Is there anything else you would, feel free to mention, give us a little alpha, anything you want to share that we can look forward to towards the end of the year?
Yeah, I would just say stay tuned. We're, as people can probably tell if they've seen our blog, like our big focus is on providing as much choice to builders as possible, building out new integrations, doing things that are really exciting for other developers and put more power in the hands of developers. And we've got some like really, really cool things in the works that we're excited to announce soon about this, both in terms of integration with other providers and new features that we're building. So the best way for people to kind of stay up to date, follow us on Twitter, follow our blog.caldera.xyz, and yeah, feel free to hit us up at conferences, etc. as well. We love to chat about this sort of stuff. So yeah, just stay tuned and stay posted.
Awesome. Thanks. It's some very exciting stuff going on. Super hyped to see what's going to come for the year to come. Honestly, it's never ending excitement for me. A month feels like 6 months. So I love to see it. Love to hear it, guys. Make sure you go check out the socials for Caldera. Go get involved in the campaign. If you're at Stanford, make sure you say hello. Feel free to say hi to us at conferences as well. We like to appear at a few there. Always very open to chat and say what's up. And I just want to thank you one more time for coming on, Matt. It's been great to get to chat with you. Congrats again on the huge amount of participation on this campaign. I think your goal is being put across in the way you wanted, and I love to see that. So I want to thank you one more time. Appreciate it. Look forward to what we can do with you guys continuing on, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And everyone listening, we will see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Duncan. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks. You too. Talk soon.